Hello everyone, this is of the stock learning video. So if you have not watched part 1 of the video, I strongly encourage you to watch part 1 first before you come to part 2, because these two parts of the video are closely related. So moving on to the slides. And as I've shared earlier, you need to watch part 1 first in order to have a better precision of what is happening here in part 2. So without further ado, a quick recap about what we have covered in part 1 of our video. We have our companion here who is Tin. He's hungry and he went to the market to get some food. And the market is very similar to stock exchange. Basically, a stock exchange is where companies get their shares listed on. And within the market itself, there are different cuisines like Jap, Thai, Korean. And this is where it represents different sectors of the stock market. And if Tin today likes to have a Western cuisine, which is pancake, this is where it is a smaller classification of the overall sectors, or in this case, industry is a smaller classification of the sectors. And likewise, if we want to go to buy pancake, we need to visit the store, and it all depends on whether this particular store has the available stock for us or available pancakes for us, because sometimes they may have run out of ingredients to bake the pancake. Henceforth, stock is where we buy the shares that we want. And stock effectively means when we buy a stock, we own a certain percentage of the particular company. Moving on to the next term is market capitalization, or represents the size of the company. And of course, as you can see from here, small caps means small companies, because cap or market cap is commonly, or market capitalization is commonly known as market cap. So as you can see here, small caps represents small companies. And there are two other terms that we usually hear. This is for your additional information, but it's very good to know. It's called blue chip companies. Basically, blue chip companies, as the name suggests, not all blue, but because these companies are very big, they are very well known to normal average person, so much so that almost anyone on the street, even though they are not investing, may have heard or know something about this particular company. And this is where we commonly call them a blue chip company. And what is a penny stock? Basically, a penny stock means smaller companies or smaller market cap companies. And you do not need to know the weight of a particular person to know that he's obese or underweight. Why do I say that? Because sometimes there's no fixed definition to what is the size of a blue chip company, and likewise there's no fixed particular definition on what is a penny stocks. More often than not, it's very similar to, we do not need to know the exact weight of an obese person to know that he's obese, and likewise we do not need to know the exact weight of a skinny person to know that he is underweight. Next term that we commonly call is the ticker symbol. Basically, it is the code of company on the stock exchange. As you can see here, this Tin. Remember earlier on, I mentioned that his nickname is Tin Man. So ticker symbol can be commonly known as a nickname as well. As you can see here, Facebook is known as FB, and Singapore Exchange is known as S68. Of course, this information can be found online, and you do not need to memorize them. But it will be good if, let's say today you are doing any form of research or doing any form of trading on your particular brokerage firm. Because with the ticker symbol, it's easier for you to look for the specific companies. And there are two distinct things I'd like to bring your attention to. As you can see here, Facebook is FB, they're purely in letters. whereas companies that are listed on the stock exchange usually have a mixture of letter and numbers. And of course, like I've mentioned earlier, there's no need for you to memorize the stock symbol. However, it is good to know when you're doing your trading, or rather when you're doing your transaction, either buying or selling of the shares, or when you're doing your research. It is very crucial to know the ticker symbol, because sometimes you have other companies that's of similar name but listed on another stock exchange. Remember, stock exchange is where all the companies are listed on. Sometimes a company can be listed on different stock exchanges. Say, for example, McDonald's. McDonald's could be listed in New York Stock Exchange, and McDonald's can be listed in other stock exchanges as well in other parts of the world. And next up is index. Index represents the indicator for the market. And as you can see here, the market is very, very volatile. And as such, when we often hear people say the market goes up or comes down, it represents the indication or the temperament of this market sentiment. So over at the US side, we have the common index, which is known as Dow Jones or the S&P 500. Whereas in Singapore, it's more straightforward. It's just the Straits Times Index. So what's the difference between Dow Jones and S&P 500? When should we use which? Doesn't really matter to know when to use which, but just note that for the Dow Jones, this is a common index that most of the investors out there will look at. S&P 500 is another common index that we look at. And when we hear people say that stock market moves up or down, they are basically referring to the index itself. So this is like an thermometer to measure the temperature of the market sentiment. Next up is volume. It represents the number of shares being transacted. So there's two types of volume basically, the buying and selling volume. The higher the volume, the more actively traded a stock is, or the more active a particular stock is being transacted. Henceforth, in this particular case, number of shares transacted, the more volume it is, the more actively traded this particular stock is. Next up is liquidity. Is how easy or difficult to buy and sell shares of the particular company. As you can see here, there's a bag of cash. If this bag of cash is left in the middle of the road, and that's where you have easy access. Everyone has easy access to this bag of cash. It is very liquid. And if this bag of cash is being placed in a secured location, the access to the bag of cash is going to be much tougher. Henceforth, it is of lower liquidity. Hence, liquidity is closely related to the volume of transactions. The lower the liquidity, the lower the volume of shares being traded, or lower the volume of shares being transacted. And so, coming back to your companion again, Tin, today he's not feeling very well, hence he is taking a thermometer to take the temperature of his body. And in this case, the temperature of the market sentiment can be reflected in the index itself, because the index represents the stock market temperaments. And today, Tin realized that he's having a high fever and decided to visit a doctor. And most of the time, doctor would write in shorthand, in their short form. And it's very similar to the ticker symbol. We do not need to know what the doctors are writing, but it'll be good to know what is the short form or what is happening, because at the end of the day, this particular shorthand is meant as a form of communication between the doctor and the staff at the medication hall where we take our medications. Hence, it is not as important as compared to the other technical terms that we need to learn and we need to internalize. Ticker symbol is a bonus if you can memorize it. It will help you to do your research and trading much easier. Next up is the weight. Most of the time when we visit the doctor, they will ask us to take our weight, and weight is often measured in kilograms. Likewise, when it comes to the weight of a company, we call them the market cap or the market capitalization of company, which represents the size of the company. And the unit that we often use for market cap is either in terms of millions or billions, because after all, represents the size of the company in terms of monetary value. And last but not least, because Tin is having a fever, so the doctor has prescribed him medicine. And how many times should he be taking the medicine? How much should he take the medicine? Should he take the medicine before or after food? And all this is very similar to the volume and liquidity, in the sense that when we buy a stock, how much should we invest in this particular stock? How much should we buy? Is it easy for us to buy or sell? So overall, I'm going to wrap up all the technical terms together. Stock exchange basically is the place where all the companies get listed. Sectors represents a classification of similar products or services. Industry is a smaller classification of the sector. Remember earlier on, I gave you the example of many different types of cuisines. You can have the Japanese, Western, Thai, Korean, and coming down to the Western cuisine, we can have a specific item called pancake. And stock is basically buying the stock is owning a certain percentage of the company, and this is where we go to the specific store or we own a specific percentage of this particular company when we buy the stock of the company. An index represents the temperature of the market sentiment. Is the market sentiment doing well today, or is the market sentiment not doing well today? This is where we refer to the index. Mix is the ticker symbol, which represents the shorthand of the doctor. You do not need to memorize or know what is the ticker symbol of the respective companies, but it will be to our advantage if we know and we can find specific information on the specific companies that we want to invest in easily on the net when we know the ticker symbol. Market cap basically represents the size of the company. The bigger the market cap of a company, the bigger the size. And most of the time, we do not need to know an obese man to be we do not need to know the exact weight of an obese man to know that he is overweight. And likewise, we do not need to know the exact figure of the market cap of a blue chip company. All we know that as long as this company is big, is well known, almost everyone on the road knows about it, but nobody, let me rephrase it, for blue chip companies, they are bigger companies, and if the average Joe who does not do investment on the road knows about this particular company, chances are it is a blue chip company. And the volume and liquidity. Volume represents the number of transactions between the buyers and sellers, and liquidity means how easy or difficult it is for us to sell our shares. So this is the overview of technical terms of investments. Like I've mentioned earlier, do take some time to familiarize yourself with the different technical terms so that you have a better understanding, and when it comes down to the bootcamp, it's easier for you to learn the investment strategies. That's all for this video. Looking forward to seeing you at the bootcamp.